Jan Hus, the shocking truth before the flames. What he revealed at 3 a.m. will haunt you forever. In the dead of night, whispers wrapped around Prague like a thick fog. No one saw it coming. They said Jan Hus, the man destined to burn, had found something, a truth so profound it could shatter his world. A flickering candle cast eerie shadows on the walls of his small, cramped cell. The air crackled with tension. Fear gripped the hearts of those who dared to listen. One man, a scholar, a priest, sat on the edge of ruin, poised to expose secrets capable of rending the very fabric of society. It was said that at 3 a.m., with the moon as his only witness, Hus would speak words that would echo through history. Even the walls seemed to lean in, straining to eavesdrop. He couldn't sleep. The weight of his destiny pressed upon his chest like a stone. He felt a knot tightening in his throat, a growing unease that coiled deeper and deeper with each passing heartbeat. What would he say? What would they do? Outside, the city lay in shadows, unaware of the storm brewing in the mind of a man who dared to challenge the church's grip on power. Then there was the moment. The bombshell revelation that sent chills down the spines of all who tuned in. Jan raised his voice just above a whisper. A hidden truth about the indifference of the clergy, the fraudulence of their promises. This was dangerous talk. Unholy secrets about indulgences and the suffering of common folk rolled off his tongue like poison. With every word, the adrenaline surged through him, anticipation and dread dancing in equal measure. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The clock ticked louder. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Time was running out. He had to choose between safety and truth. Breathing heavy, Jan stood, poised on the precipice of revelation. Would he finish what he began? As the final syllables tumbled from his lips, a deafening silence filled the cell, thick enough to suffocate. Outside, the wind howled like a beast, sending a shiver down his spine. He looked out into the darkness, fearing the light of dawn, waiting for the certain reckoning. Would anyone believe him? Would they care enough? And just like that, in the heart of the night, a question lingered: how far would he go to reveal what lay beneath the holy facade? The heavy silence felt like a blanket, smothering Jan Hus. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the reality of what he just said settled in. He had unleashed a torrent that couldn't be contained. As the echoes of his voice faded, he struggled to breathe, his heart pounding against his ribcage, a desperate reminder that he was alive, yet teetering on the brink of annihilation. Outside his cell, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn's approach was imminent, bringing not just light but also the risk of exposure. Every shadow, every creak of the ancient stone walls, felt alive with threat. The wind whistled through the narrow openings, carrying the scent of damp earth and dread. Jan's mind raced. What if those who ruled with fear, heard him? What if his words sparked a rebellion? Would they stifle the truth, bury it deeper beneath their lies? Suddenly, a noise echoed in the hallway, a heavy boot clanging against the stone. Jan stiffened, adrenaline coursing through him. Were they coming for him already? Could they sense the seismic shift that had begun in his heart? His stomach twisted as he pressed himself against the wall, scarcely daring to breathe. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside, a familiar silhouette. It was Peter, his loyal friend, eyes wide, panic etched across his face. Jan felt a wave of relief wash over him, quickly followed by a new surge of fear. If Peter was here, he must know what had Jan evoked with his reckless disclosure. Jan! What have you done? Peter's voice trembled, urgency slicing through the cold air. I heard whispers in the tavern. They know what you said. They're plotting already. What do you mean? Jan whispered back, the gravity of his words dragging him further under. Do they know I spoke against the church? Are they silence you? They silence anyone who dares to listen. Peter's hand shot out, gripping Jan's arm tightly, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. You need to escape. Now. Panic coursed through January. Escape. He thought of the people waiting for change outside these walls, the common folk suffering under the weight of indifference. His revelation was their only hope. I can't just run. If I leave without trying to make this truth known, your life is on the line. Peter snapped, the urgency boiling over. If you die, what will happen to the message? You must survive to spread it. The weight of Jan's choice bore down on him. Would running mean abandoning his mission? But standing still could mean death, and perhaps worse, the perpetuation of the church's deceit. The tension flared between them, clashing like thunder in a summer storm. Jan, listen to reason. We can find allies, gather more voices to join you. But not if you're burning at the stake. Peter's voice cracked with desperation, the moment stretched like a taut string, and Jan's mind raced. A part of him longed to flee, to find safety in the unforgiving world beyond the walls. Yet, a deeper part, a voice that resonated with every ounce of his being, screamed that there was a war to be fought. He stepped towards Peter, determination sparking in his hazel eyes. I can't abandon the truth now. I will make them listen. Suddenly, the light spilling through the door dimmed as heavy footsteps echoed, coming closer. Jan's breath hitched. They had arrived. In an instant, the choice would be made, not just for Jan, but for everyone he held dear. What would he do when they confronted him? Would he stand firm, or would he be consumed by the flames of his own making? Time was evaporating faster than the daylight. As the footsteps closed in, Jan's heart hammered. The dawning light cast a new shadow. Would he rise to meet it, or would it swallow him whole? The door creaked wider, and the truth, once hidden in the corners of his mind, would finally step into the light. Would it be salvation or doom? The door flung open with a force that reverberated against the stone walls, and Jan squinted against the brightness flooding into the dimness of his cell. 3 figures stepped inside, cloaked in shadows, their faces obscured but their intentions unmistakable. Jan Hus, one of them, sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. We've heard your foolish words. You think you can rouse the masses? Foolishness. You're in no position to provoke a rebellion. Jan's blood ran cold. He could feel Peter's anxious presence at his side, a shield against the encroaching threat. But what good would a shield be against weapons or whispers? The figures moved slowly, deliberately, the creaking of leather and the rustling of cloaks amplifying the tension. Why don't you speak your mind now? The man said, stepping closer. His features sharpened as he emerged from the shadows, a wolf among sheep. Tell us what you told everyone else. Or better yet, tell us how you feel about your precious truth. Jan's throat felt stripped bare. He could almost hear the pulsing beat of his heart in the silence that followed. I stand by what I said. Silence. This time, it was another figure who interrupted, stepping forward with a twisted smirk. He had eyes like pale coals, devoid of warmth but full of menace. You think the church cares about what you believe? It cares only about power, January. You've made a grave mistake. The threat hung heavy in the air, thickening the atmosphere until it felt suffocating. Jan clenched his fists, fighting both fear and the urge to flee. Somewhere behind him, Peter whispered a prayer, protective words meant to ward off evil, to cover them like a warm blanket. But Jan knew what kind of storm they were in, and soft words wouldn't drive away the darkness. If you want to fight, let me make it clear. Jan took a deep breath, searching for strength. I will not be silenced. You can lock me in a cell, or light a fire to burn my body. But my words, the truth, will live on. Laughter erupted from the group, echoing off the stone. Words. The wolf-like figure taunted. What power do they hold when the flame consumes you? We're not here merely to silence you, January. No, we're here for a spectacle. What do you mean? Jan stumbled back, confusion washing over him, mixing with the rising horror. You'll pay for your insolence, the second figure spoke, a sickly smile forming. And your end will serve as a warning. The people need to see what happens when they dare to question. In that moment, clarity cut through Jan's fear, turning into a blade of resolve. This was not merely about him anymore, it was about the lives of all those who resided beyond the stone walls. The fire in his chest ignited anew. If you think I'll cower in fear, you're sorely mistaken. They will see me burn as a spark igniting the very revolution you dread. They will hear my voice through the flames. Fool! The wolf's eyes blazed for a moment. You underestimate our power. Jan's thoughts raced as he noticed Peter slipping silently toward the door. A plan was forming, glimmers of hope piercing the looming shadows. Would the risk be worth it? The weight of the world settled on his shoulders, urging him to act. Peter! Jan called, adrenaline pumping. Get out! Tell them! Gather the voices that are louder than mine. The dread pooling in Jan's gut twisted painfully. He could feel the moment dissolving into chaos. Would they cut him off before he could inspire the uprising? Would he truly become nothing more than a charred memory? The door slammed shut, cutting off Peter's retreat. The figures stepped even closer, backing him into a corner, and Jan's heart raced. There was no time left, no safety to be found. What comes next for you, Jan? Your flames will spark a fire, but at what cost? The wolf's grin widened, and he raised his hand, signaling to the others. Outside, the world lay unaware, innocent of the storm brewing within the stone walls. Jan's breath quickened as the first flicker of flame ignited behind him, shimmering like a promise. Would his sacrifice bring forth a change, or was he merely fueling the very machine that sought to consume him? The warmth of the flames beckoned, but so did the certainty of his choice. Would he withstand the fire, or would it be a final, desperate plea swallowed whole? As the blaze licked the air, Jan's resolve hardened. The moment had come. But in what ways would his fight echo beyond the flames? Time was slipping through his fingers like hot coals. Would this be the day he would rise, or the day he would be extinguished for good? The flames danced hungrily around Jan, wrapping him in a lethal embrace, yet a strange calm settled in him. As panic swirled in the air, his spirit surged with defiance. Each flickering tongue of fire was a brushstroke on a larger canvas, a message waiting to be inscribed on the hearts of the people beyond these walls. He could feel their breaths, their fears, and their longings. They had to witness him. We'll see how brave you are, Jan. The wolf figure growled, stepping closer, the heat seeming to thrill him. You misunderstand the drama we're creating. You will die publicly. A reminder of the cost of dissent. Jan spat in defiance, anger propelling his voice. Let them watch. My truth is bigger than your threats. A fire ignited by injustice only burns brighter. The figure's laughter was sharp, like daggers slicing through the tension. It echoed against the stone, rattling the very foundation of what Jan stood for. We're not the ones to fear, January. The flames will consume you, leaving only ashes and whispers. But the spectacle? That will be remembered. With each taunt, Jan felt the stirrings of desperation claw at his insides. He was alone, surrounded by shadows with cruel smiles, and the walls felt ever tighter. But then he remembered Peter's tangible hope in that dark moment. Open the door. He shouted suddenly, voice soaring above the crackling flames. I'll not be the only one to burn for truth. You'll see others rise, you can't silence us all. A fleeting flicker of uncertainty passed across the wolf's face, only to be replaced by a sinister grin. So, you think a few weaklings will rally to your cause? The common folk. They fear us more than they fear you. But Jan sensed something shifting. Could fear, once a cage, transform into fuel for freedom? Underneath the heavy laugh of the shadows, he found a corner of his heart still bold. Just as the fire surged higher, in that radiant moment of clarity, he turned the heat of his spirit outward. "Listen," he cried, voice piercing through smoke. "My body may be a sacrifice, but my words will ignite the hearts of many. Nothing can extinguish the desire for freedom. I will not die in vain." He grasped the rough stone wall beside him, feeling its gritty texture, grounding himself amidst the chaos. "Witness my resolve," he roared, turning his head toward the hidden watchers beyond the door, unaware yet, but not for long. "Your fear has been your shackle, but the truth will set you free. Watch me burn and rise as your inspiration." The wolf's face twisted in fury, an embodiment of rage against the very essence of Jan's hope. "Enough." He stepped forward, the distance closing as he appeared to glow against the bright flame behind January. "We'll see how much inspiration you offer when you're nothing but a smoldering corpse." With a sudden thrust of his hands, Jan summoned all the courage he could muster. "So let it be. Watch me burn, for when the embers fall, they will be a call to arms. I am but one voice, but the chorus shall rise." Then came the crash. A sound like thunder echoed in the chamber as the door flung open, revealing Peter in the entrance, wide-eyed and frantic. "Jan!" he shouted. "I'm here. They're coming. We have to go." In that moment, the ground shifted. Jan's heart raced. Was this truly his chance? Could they escape this fiery chaos, or was this still the beginning of something perilous? As Peter reached for him, reaching through smoke, Jan hesitated for just a moment, flames licking the back of his shirt. He could feel the burning resolve beneath his skin. "Let them see," he shouted to Peter. "They must witness this moment. The truth needs a fire to rise." But Peter's eyes widened in panic, pulling on his arm, urgency hovering thick between them. Would they drown in the flames, or escape into the unknown? The flames roared around them, and time blurred as Jan felt the heat pressing in, urging him toward a decision. Would he leave behind a legacy or follow the path of safety? That moment stood suspended on a knife's edge, frozen, yet ripe with the scent of revolution. Within the chaos, the whispers of a collective fate hung silently in the air. "Which path will you choose, Jan?" The specter of fate loomed large as they stood at the threshold of terror and possibility. Would his spark light the way for others, or would it perish in the very darkness it sought to reveal? Just as Jan opened his mouth to answer, the ground shook with layers of hidden truths. Would they break free, or be consumed? The flames roared louder, twisting higher, and Jan's heart raced. He could practically hear the heartbeat of the crowd outside, their anxiety mingling with his own. This was not just his fight anymore, it was theirs too, and he had an obligation to bring them along with him. "Jan!" "We have to think." Peter's pull was frantic, but Jan yanked his arm free, determination igniting within him. "No. Look." He swung his hand wide, gesturing for Peter to see beyond the smoke, a glimpse of silhouettes gathering outside, shadows collecting in the dim light. A murmured surge rose from the crowd, a pulse of collective fear and hope. "They're here. They're watching." Peter's face was a mask of panic, yet even he couldn't ignore the way the energy shifted. "But just trust me. A blaze needs air to grow." Jan interrupted, each word crackling with urgency. Behind him, the heat pressed against his back, yet his conviction burned even hotter. He could be the spark they needed to ignite change. "This isn't just about us." The wolf's laughter echoed again, mingling with the crackling fire. "Foolish boy. No one will rise. They come to mock you. To jeer at your final moments." But in that instant, Jan felt the tide shift. Voices were raised, tenuous but growing louder, a symphony of dissent against the silence expected of them. Goosebumps pricked the back of his neck as adrenaline coursed through him. "Watch me!" Jan roared back at the wolf. "If you think you can snuff out hope, you're mistaken. Fear will not keep them quiet forever." The wolf's grin twisted wickedly. Let them see. You'll merely be a lure, forcing them back into submission. A martyr's end is nothing without witnesses, but was that all he was? Just a figure at the end of a cruel spectacle? No, he realized. He could be more. His voice could weave through the flames, stretch beyond the walls, and ignite the courage in their hearts. Peter. With a fierce grip, he turned to his friend, eyes ablaze with purpose. We need to show them what they can become. The fire's roar isn't just my demise, it's a call. Together, we can be the spark. Peter hesitated, glancing back toward the door, then at January. The weight of their shared moments passed silently between them, covert glances, whispered secrets. It was now or never. With a deep breath, Peter nodded sharply. All right. But if we're doing this, he reached into his satchel, fingers fumbling as they produced a small wooden torch with a length of cloth coiled around its tip. We'll set our own flame. The wolf screeched, eyes wide with rage. No. You will be destroyed. Ashes will be your legacy. As Peter lit the torch, a bold flame flared to life. It rippled through the air, catching the attention of those gathered outside. Jan's breath caught as he saw the flicker of hope ignite in the eyes beyond the fiery curtain. They were reluctant, yet curiosity was tugging them forward. Creating an inferno, are we? The wolf snarled, stepping back in disbelief. You think this will matter? It matters because we're saying enough. Jan shouted, raising his voice over the crackling inferno. Look at me. I will burn, but my spirit won't be silenced. The truth must be tasted and remembered. The crowd hesitated at the threshold, their faces illuminated by the glow of the torch, uncertain yet yearning. Together. Jan beckoned, feeling the surge of desperation pressing to be free. Let them see us. Take a step forward. Rage against this darkness. Then, without warning, an earth-shattering crash broke through the chaos from the back of the chamber. A distant roar echoed, accompanied by the rapid thud of boots. An unexpected thunder of backup shadows stormed inside, racing against the tide of flames and fear. Jan. Peter. We're here. Move. The doors were wide open again, and in rushed figures clad in soot-smeared clothes, rebels and allies, emboldened by the sight of new courage blooming amidst disaster. Would they flood in to save Jan, or would the flames consume one final hope? The stakes soared higher as Jan felt the heat intensify, the flames licking closer, leaving him standing between faith and the looming barrier of fire. Would this be the moment that turned the tide, or the fatal end of his message? With voices crashing against the inferno's roar, the chaotic energy swirled endlessly, leading to one urgent question: could bravery outshine the blaze, or would they all descend into the ashes together? The chaos erupted like a thunderstorm, relentless and deafening. Jan's senses heightened, he felt every heartbeat of the crowd resonating through the trembling ground. The figures rushing in were a stark contrast to the flickering shadows outside. Hope surged, almost palpably, as those familiar faces locked eyes with him. Get to safety. Jan shouted, battling the thick smoke that blotted out his vision, his voice rising over the roar of the flames. But they didn't scatter. Instead, they forged ahead, rebels, friends, and strangers, driven by a shared fire. Jan couldn't see all their features, but in the dim light, determination glimmered in their expressions. The wolves were still lurking in the shadows, their eyes glinting like daggers, hungry for blood. Fools! The lead wolf howled, shoving past the chaos. Do you think you can fight fate? You'll only embrace disaster. But Jan couldn't focus on the darkness creeping at the edges. He turned to Peter, whose face was now fiercely illuminated by the sweeping glow of the torch he held high. We have to show them. Jan said, his eyes locking onto Peter's, show them what we can become together. With a single nod, Peter sprinted toward the advancing figures, brandishing the torch like a banner of rebellion. One by one, the arrivals grasped the flames within their hearts, their voices rising in support. It wasn't just Jan anymore, they were moving together. Forward. Jan urged, and as if touched by an unseen force, the crowd surged forward, a rising tide crashing against the metaphorical walls of oppression, but the wolf, darker than night and filled with malice, was lurking just behind. You think mere flames will protect you? You're just lighting a fuse to your own demise. Jan felt a chill crawl up his spine. But he stood taller, straightened his spine, and raised his voice over the crackle of the inferno. No flame is eternal. Each spark is a reason to persist. We are the fire, and together, we blaze brighter than any darkness. The crowd roared, echoing his words like wild thunder, and with every shout, the flames danced as if in celebration. Jan saw their faces ignite with newfound strength, resolve swelling within them, breaking chains they never thought could be forged. Then, just as their desperate hope surged, another crash shook the ground. A wall shuddered, and a piece crumbled down, revealing an escape route. Light streamed in from the opening, a brilliant contrast to the hellish flames licking at their heels. The crowd faltered, eyes darting between the ever-closer inferno and this unforeseen chance of freedom. Out! Everyone out! Peter yelled, motioning toward the opening, the torch still ablaze. But fear clutched at Jan's chest. Wait! He stepped forward, feeling the pull of both the dangerous flames and the hope that lay ahead. What if this is a trap? The wolf's laughter echoed through the chamber, piercing through the urgency. You think you're clever? They will chase you right into my jaws. Nothing escapes me. Doubt flickered for a moment in Jan's mind. If they chose to follow him into the light, what awaited them on the other side? Victory or the final end? With the cracks of chaos all around them, the air thick with smoke and fear, Jan felt his heart pound in rhythm with the crowd's rising uncertainty. Where could they run that the wolf could not pursue? Together. He shouted again, rallying again. Trust in each other. We fight or we fall on our terms. He looked back at the shadows gathering, those same tangled forms threatening to engulf their spirit. Would this be their moment of clarity, or had they stepped into a snare they couldn't escape? A moment as silence wrapped around them like a shroud as the flowers of hope bloomed anew, urging them forward. What lay waiting in the shadows could change everything. Would they seize their freedom or succumb to the darkness? The decision hung heavy in the air, pulsating with a wild energy. Would they make it out, or had the wolves closed in for the final act? A crack of thunder echoed above, rattling Jan's already fraying nerves as the flames roared like wild beasts. Around him, the crowd hesitated. The light from the crumbling wall beckoned, and with it, a dizzying mix of hope and trepidation. Faces were set with determination, yet uncertainty shimmered in their eyes. Go, now! Peter's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. He darted forward, torch raised high, casting flickering shadows on the walls beyond. Jan felt an almost electric pulse racing through the mob, urging them to move, to follow Peter into the unknown, but Jan remained rooted where he stood. Wait! He shouted, the word bursting from him as if to ward off some looming danger. We can't just charge into the light. We need to think. Think? Snorted one of the newcomers, a wild-eyed woman with soot-streaked cheeks. While we burn. The lead wolf's laugh rolled through the building, a low, sinister growl that sent chills down Jan's spine. Ah, the brave little rebel thinks he can outsmart fate. Jan took a moment, catching his breath, as the others pressed against him, their faces a storm of emotion, fear battling hope. Was he really the one they should trust to lead them? Sweat dripped down his back, mingling with the smoke and tension in the air. He opened his mouth to speak again but felt a surge of doubt. Peter turned, halting in place as he caught Jan's eye. We can't hesitate. The buildings around them began to tremble as another crash echoed nearby. A new piece of the ceiling crumbled behind them, yet the flames were drawing in, closing like teeth over a meal. The woman's voice rose again, shaking with desperation. If we die trapped here, what's the point of holding back? Let us burn brighter than the fire. With that, she surged toward the light, an audacious spark twirling from her fingertips. One by one, others followed her into the blinding glow, spurred by the vortex of emotions swirling in the air around them. "Wait!" Jan shouted, but the mob was no longer listening. The call of freedom was too strong, and the painful truth crashed upon him: if they chose to leap forward, they were leaving him behind. Confidence slipped away like grains of sand through his fingers. "Jan!" Peter's voice pulled him back. "We need your decision." As Jan glanced towards the lead wolf, he could see the anticipation twisted on the beast's face. "You think they will find salvation beyond that door?" The wolf's tone dripped with mockery. "They'll simply become ashes like the rest of my prey." A spark ignited in Jan's chest. Was this his moment to reclaim their fate? "No," he called, his voice still trembling but resolute. "They're not ashes. They're the flame." Without another thought, he broke through the throng, racing for the light. The brightness surged, filling him with a sense of urgency and fear, but he couldn't turn back now, not after everything they had fought for. But as the brightness slowly enveloped him, Jan wondered, was the rumored safety just a cruel deception? Anguished roars echoed behind him as he pushed on, glimpsing shadows thicken around the torch Peter held. Flames erupted like monsters from the dark as the wolf lunged forward, teeth bared, and heart racing. Suddenly, Jan's world narrowed, consumed by fire and darkness. With one desperate leap toward freedom, he burst through the threshold and into the unknown. There, each breath of air seared his lungs, burning with everything he fought for: a promise of hope or a pathway to doom. Beyond the light, did salvation await, or had he stepped into the jaws of the wolf itself? The ground trembled again. Jan's heart raced as whispers in the darkness began anew. They were not safe. Not yet. What lay waiting, just outside their reach, ready to drench them in despair? The air crackled with tension, a suffocating blanket wrapping around Jan as he stepped into the blinding light. Blinking away the spots in his vision, he tried to make sense of his surroundings. Was he still alive? The memory of the snarling wolf and the ravenous flames was fresh, but the light was neither fire nor shadow. It had a clarity that shook through his very core. As his sight adjusted, he found himself in a vast, open space, an empty street illuminated by flickering lanterns swaying in the breeze. Cobblestones glistened like wet glass, reflecting the uncertainty clouding his thoughts. Just beyond the street, he could hear the distant rumble of thunder, a reminder that chaos still lurked behind him. "Jan!" Peter's voice broke through his daze. It was both a lifeline and a pinprick of panic. "Over here." Turning, Jan saw Peter beckoning from the shadow of a dimly lit alley. He ran toward him, each step heavy with dread. Had they left anyone behind? Was the mob truly gone? The realization ignited a fire in his gut, stronger than the heat of the flames they'd escaped. Peter's face was streaked with soot, but his eyes held a fierce determination. "What's wrong? Why do you look so lost?" "I don't know, Jan faltered, the words tumbling out chaotic and hollow. "They followed me. But what if they don't make it?" Suddenly, the alley behind them exploded with sparks and the echoing clash of a struggle. The wolf. Jan's heart dropped as instinct kicked in. He stepped back, his breaths quick but shallow. "What if it's waiting for us? Whatever it is, we can't stay here." Peter's firm grip on Jan's shoulder urged him forward. "We need to find them. They might still be alive." They sprinted down the street, weaving past abandoned buildings, their hearts pounding in unison. The rain began to fall in heavy sheets, washing over the pavement like death itself. Through the haze of rain and desperation, Jan could see silhouettes shuffling ahead, a handful of figures, bound together by fear or hope. "Wait!" he shouted, trying to catch their attention. "We're here." As they drew closer, Jan's pulse quickened. The crowd formed a half-circle around a woman trembling in the downpour. Her hands were marked with burns, and her eyes darted around, clearly overwhelmed. "It took them. It took them," she wailed, her voice strangled with despair. "What are you talking about?" Jan demanded, forcing his way closer. Who took who? That thing, she stammered, pointing away from the alley, back toward the glow that led them here. There were more wolves. They came for us. The others, they didn't make it. The words sliced through the air like a dagger, splintering the fragile hope that had held Jan together. No, no. He gritted out. Panic surged within him, a beast clawing at his insides. Fear of failing them, of losing the fight, reverberated in his chest. Peter's grip tightened on Jan's arm. Jan, we can't waste time. If we don't act now, before he could finish, a deep growl rumbled through the shadowed street, growing louder and darker, the air vibrating as if it were alive. Jan's lungs seized, he could smell it, wet fur and smoke. The woman shrieked as a massive shadow loomed behind her. The lead wolf emerged, eyes gleaming maliciously. With a lungful of dread, Jan turned to Peter. What do we do? But deep down, he felt the weight of a choice coil in his gut. Would he protect those who might be lost, or confront the creature that had haunted them all, once and for all? The moment narrowed, and Jan felt the ground beneath him shake, not just from thunder but from the weight of his decision. Would he step forward into the impending darkness, or flee into the unknown, praying for safety? The answer loomed as the wolf growled again, hungering for blood and fear, and in that moment, everything changed. The wolf lunged forward, teeth glinting like sharpened knives in the dim light. Jan's instinct kicked in as he pulled Peter to the side. The air was thick with dread as the creature brushed past, its weight causing the ground to quiver. Jan's heart raced. They had to act fast. He could feel every breath in his chest as he took a step back, but Peter was resolute. Don't back down, Jan. Peter shouted, his eyes locked on the beast. We can't let it take anyone else. With resolve blooming like a flame amidst the storm, Jan straightened up. He couldn't let fear consume him. He mustered the courage that had felt so elusive in moments past. The woman was still trembling, and the small group of survivors looked to him for direction. A flicker of determination ignited within him. We'll fight. Together. Jan yelled, his voice cutting through the rain like a battle cry. The wolf paused, sensing the change. Its eyes narrowed, and it let out a piercing howl that echoed down the abandoned street. Jan felt the sound reverberate in his bones, freezing him for a heartbeat. Pete grabbed the nearest cobblestone and hurled it at the massive creature, the impact causing it to flinch. We need anything we can use as a weapon. He shouted, his voice a lifeline in the face of despair. In the dim light, Jan's gaze darted around, searching. He spotted an old, rusted pipe half buried in the mud from the rain. His instincts kicked in, and he lunged towards it, digging it out with desperation. As he clutched it, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. The wolf, recovering from the stone, shifted its focus back onto them, its nostrils flaring. Jan could see the glimmer of its teeth, sharp and menacing, ready to strike. Move! He yelled, rallying the others. We need to circle it. Their panic transformed into action. Jan, Peter, and the woman began to move. They sidestepped, creating an encircled front, hoping to drive the wolf back towards the alleyway they had come from. Each shuffling step was filled with both fear and resolve, the weight of their lives hanging by a thread. Just then, a dim light flickered near the buildings behind them. It caught the attention of the wolf. It hesitated, growling low as if sensing another danger. What is that? Jan whispered, barely able to keep his eyes off the beast. Could it be more of them? Peter asked, glancing nervously. Jan didn't want to think about that. The wolf's attention was divided, but they had to take advantage of this. Now! He yelled, swinging the pipe and sprinting toward the wolf in a wild charge. The beast turned, roaring angrily. Jan swung at its side, catching fur and flesh. The creature yelped, momentarily distracted, but its massive body whipped around, claws striking out. Jan ducked just in time, feeling the gust of air sweep over him. The woman screamed, and Peter shouted, keep it focused on you, Jan. See Mon. We can't let it win. Jan rallied, voices mixing with the pounding rain. Each moment felt eternal, each heartbeat a drum echoing through the chaos. Out of the corner of his eye, Jan noticed shadows move along the edges of the street, more shapes, moving toward them. More wolves. "Jan, behind you!" Peter yelled, but it was too late, they were surrounded. Panic clawed at Jan's throat as he turned slowly, realizing the nightmare had just multiplied. "Get back! We need to!" Jan's voice cut off as he took a step back, his heart pounding louder than the thunder above. One step, then another, until the cobblestones seemed to shift beneath him, the figures were drawing closer, and the lead wolf had firmed its stance, eyes glinting with malice. Now, the battle seemed to be shifting, not only against the one beast but against the writhing tide of despair encroaching on them all. Jan's breath quickened. He had made a choice, but it felt like a trap. Fight or flee? He asked himself in the darkest depths of those piercing eyes, longing for an escape he wasn't even sure existed anymore. The decision loomed as the ominous growls filled the air, a question echoing like a funeral chant: would they endure, or would they succumb? And as the shadows shattered into more monsters, Jan knew their fate could change in a heartbeat. The true fight had just begun. With a thunderous crash, the pack of wolves launched themselves forward, dark shadows eclipsing the feeble hope that flickered in the air. Jan's heart raced, drowning in a cacophony of growls and crashing storm. "To me," he yelled, launching himself toward the nearest wolf, the pipe clenched like a sword. Fear coursed through his veins, but he wouldn't back down. He couldn't just stand by and watch the weight of their vulnerability pushed him to the center of the brewing chaos. With adrenaline clawing at his skin, he swung the rusted pipe at the nearest wolf, connecting with a solid thud against its shoulder. The creature howled in rage, twisting its massive frame. Jan didn't wait to see if it would retaliate. He darted to the side, feeling the rush of air as claws and fangs barely missed him. "We have to push them back," he shouted, adrenaline pumping more fiercely than the rain soaking him through. "Don't falter." Out of the corner of his eye, he caught Peter throwing stones, rallying the remaining survivors into a defensive line. The urgency gripped Jan's heart tighter. This was all more than just survival, they were fighting for each other. For hope, but even as they pressed forward, more wolves emerged from the shadows, their growls a sinister chorus. The surrounding darkness buzzed with fresh energy, a sense of dread slipping into every crevice of the alley. For a heartbeat, uncertainty gripped January. Fear twisted in his gut. Would this be the day he would die fighting, or could they make it through? "Jan!" called Peter, urgency lacing his voice. "We can't stay here. We have to get to that light." He pointed toward the distant glow beyond the chaos where they first glimpsed freedom. Swallowing hard, Jan nodded. They could do this, if they stood together. "Let us move. Stay close." They sidestepped each advancing wolf, the lines blurring between predator and prey. Jan felt terror winding around him like smoke, but the thrill of survival and the warmth of solidarity in his comrades stoked a roaring fire within him. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. He counted, and they sprinted as one through the shadows. Determined shouts echoed with every step, the rhythm of their footsteps buoying their resolve. The pack lunged, teeth snapping, but Jan ducked low, feeling the breeze as danger swooped over him like a hawk. He could hear Peter's voice rallying the others, calling for them to take courage, to not look back. They were nearing the light, and with each moment, freedom pulsed in time with his racing heart. But just as they reached the edge of the alleyway, the lead wolf blocked their path, its eyes like coal, dark and hungry. The remaining members of the pack surrounded them, closing in with sinister intent. "Don't let them trap you," Jan called out, desperation forcing his voice to rise above the din. He brandished the pipe, planting his feet. "We rise together." The group stood firm in formation, the shadows grinding closer. With one synchronized cry, they stepped forward, pushing against fear and uncertainty. Jan clamped his jaw, eyes burning with defiance as he faced the looming beast before him, but then, a flicker caught his eye, a figure flickering at the edge of the glow behind the lead wolf. It was a ghost from the past, a beacon of flickering conviction that spread through the onlookers, invigorating their spirits. "I'm not alone." His heart hummed with relentless strength. "Take up courage, stand tall. We're not just here to survive, we claim our future." He raised his makeshift weapon high, and overhead, Peter ignited his torch, illuminating their surroundings with a defiant flame. "For those who fought before us," Peter cried as his voice collided with the shadows, urging others in the crowd to join them. The wolves hissed, sensing the shift. They were no longer faced with prey. They were now confronted by a fierce thrumming pulse of warriors. The transformative energy rippled through the group as the power of unity sparked into action. Jan felt heartbeats synchronize around him, a swell of energy building like a thunderclap, explosive and undeniable. "We move," he commanded, plunging toward the flank of the lead wolf, striking with purpose. And as they surged forward, the howl of the wind mixed with the cries of defiance from the crowd, and something shifted. A fragment of hope crystallized in the air. The essence of their unity and shared sacrifice filled the night sky like a blazing star. Suddenly, the pack began to retreat, shifting back into darkness as the force of their resolve bore down on them. Jan gasped, courage flooding his chest. Together, they could face this fear. With a newfound sense of power, they advanced, pushing the wolves deeper into hiding, cutting through the murky shadows that threatened to swallow them all. Jan's heart raced as the lead wolf stumbled back, snarling, searching for a final chance to reclaim its prey. But Jan didn't waver. He felt the courage of an entire community swelling within him. He was not just Jan Hus, he was part of an unfolding revolution. "Push them back. We're not retreating." And so, freed from the clutches of despair, they surged toward the light, elated by the fierce triumph that coursed through their veins. Hope had found a voice, shining brilliantly through the darkness. They burst into the open, the rain washing over them as a cleansing tide, further igniting the voices of those waiting just beyond. They stood together, illuminated by the glow of their courage, ready for whatever came next. The night was shrouded in uncertainty, but they would not face it alone. As the wolves melted into shadows, Jan turned to the faces around him, newfound fire crackling between them. "Remember what brought us here," he said, voice steady. "Together, we can face any darkness. We are the spark. We will fight, we will rise, and we will not be extinguished." The crowd roared in affirmation, a clarion call that echoed through the streets, something raw and beautiful. The hearts rallying around Jan shone with a promise that their flame would endure, that their journey was only beginning. Forward! They rallied, united in purpose and spirit, ready to forge their destiny. And as they disappeared into the night, the whispers of revolution soared through the air, captivating anyone willing to listen, a ripple of hope that refused to be silenced. You need to subscribe now. Do not miss out on the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the momentum going. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. True fans know the importance of our community.